back to the Idle Talk podcast. My name is Peyton. I'm joined by my friend Jacob. And today we are recapping season 46, episode 2. This is going to be a heavy spoiler episode, so this is your warning right now. We're going to be recapping the full episode, so if you have not seen it yet, you might want to go ahead and watch that before listening to this discussion.
So, I thought this was a really fun episode. I think it was really interestingly and interestingly and I guess whimsically produced, I guess is a good word. But it just seemed like production was having a lot of fun producing this episode in terms of shots that they did, things that they chose to include, like the song challenge between Charlie and Ben, which we can talk about later, but just the things that they chose to include in the episode. I just thought that production did a really good job with this episode. And then we also got another 2-hour episode, which was really cool. I definitely felt like there were moments that seemed to drag a little bit. I definitely felt the runtime of this episode in particular. So I think maybe the 90 minutes is a good sweet spot. The 2 hours definitely seems like it could drag, but I do like 2 hours for the first episode. I think beyond the first episode, it can just start to drag a little bit. So I think the 90-minute episodes is a good sweet spot in terms of episode length. So, but I really enjoyed the second episode, and there was a lot of crazy stuff that happened. A lot of personalities started to take shape that we will get more into. But yeah, what did you think of the episode?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said. I think that production had a lot of fun filming this episode and had a lot of fun in the editing room. There are really 2 moments, maybe 3, that stand out in my head actually as being moments that gave it a lot of character. I think the first one is the song battle between Ben and Charlie, naming Metallica songs versus Taylor Swift songs. And it turns into this real moment where they're tallying on screen, going back and forth. And you can tell that on the island, the crew, they're filming this like it's a challenge. And they are aware that in the editing room, they're going to edit this like a challenge. And they're going to include this in the show. They know what they have is gold, and you can feel it in the moment. And so you can tell, like, that's a really fun moment, seeing tribe life like that. Another one is the moment of Mariah and Liz on the benches during the challenge when this challenge is going on and there's craziness and they're pushing these carts and Venus gets her toe run over. And we'll be able to talk about that later, too. And it's just chaos and yelling. And then they just cut over to the 2 of them. And they're the twins. And that's kind of the ongoing joke. And they're just sitting.
The Parent Trap.
Yeah, the Parent Trap. They're just sitting there kicking their feet. And they're like, hey, what's your name? I like your socks. It's very comedic, super funny. And I have this image in my head of whatever brilliant editor or person on the team or producer, whoever, was looking through the footage, or maybe it was someone on the island that shot that, and it was their idea. They're like, hey, we've got this moment. What if we just cut to that? We cut all the audio, and we just snap over to this for a minute, and then we cut back to the challenge. And it's just comedy, and it in its purest form. I love it. I think it just shows their personalities so well, and yeah, I love it. A lot of character in the edit of the episode. Felt really fun. And then the other moment was cutting the bandana off the immunity idol that Jeff did there when they first show up to the challenge, when Nami comes and they have the yellow bandana wrapped around its head because,
orange.
Or it was yellow.
It was the orange tribe.
They're the orange tribe, but it was a yellow bandana.
It was orange.
Nah, I think it was yellow. Their colors, all of them wear yellow and orange for their tribe. But their tribe color is orange. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But they have their tribe colors on it. Then that whole scene, there's lots of banter and all this sort of stuff, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So, but then Jeff pulling out the knife and that whole sequence, the way it was shot and filmed and then edited was very dramatic. And so I think that there was a lot of drama there that production had a lot of fun with. And so that carried throughout the entire episode. And it was a lot of fun. So I enjoyed this episode a lot. There were moments that I didn't love, but I think in general, it was a very interesting episode, was very invested, had a lot of fun, but it was also so different, I think, from the premiere. And that's what I would really love to get into, is talk about how different it is from the premiere and the shift that we have in some of these characters, some of these castaways from the very first episode. And I think maybe the best way to go about that is to go tribe by tribe. And I think probably the best place to start is with the tribe that has the least screen time. And I think, I don't know if you agree, but I would say we probably start with Siga, just because they're really not shown much at all outside of the challenge.
Yeah. I really don't feel like we've gotten much from any of the players. We really haven't even seen much strategy from them, other than we know that Maria has an extra vote. The idol on their island hasn't been found.
Nope.
So
Or
there's
not that we've
no
seen.
idol.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the Beware Advantage has been found on their beach yet. And it's also not obtainable because you have to lose the immunity challenge first to get it. But no one has found the Beware Advantage yet.
Yeah. Or at least not that we've seen. They've not
it has not been revealed
Yeah.
that someone has found the Beware Advantage yet. The only real strategy we've seen is that there's the female alliance plus Charlie, and then Charlie and Maria kind of being in the middle between working with the girls, and then Charlie trying to build a bond with Ben and Tim. So we just really haven't gotten a lot of screen time from them. I think it's also maybe just a product of those group of people just honestly seem like not super strategic. They just, I don't know. Maybe they are, and we just haven't seen a lot of it in the edit. But yeah, we're just not getting a lot from them, and I think that's also a negative issue with the 3-tribe format. I know, especially in this week's episode of On Fire, Jeff gives some insight into another reason why they do the 3-tribe format. But I think a downside of the 3-tribe format is one is just getting significantly less screen time, because the tribe that goes to tribal always gets the most, and then you have to divide what little is remaining between two. So we're just really not seeing a lot of them yet, and we probably won't until they lose a challenge.
Yeah, it's so bizarre too, because you mentioned earlier that even in this 2-hour-long episode, there were moments that felt like it was dragging on, and it felt too long, and we were lingering. And I'm just wondering, why didn't we see more of there? It felt like we were seeing so much of Yanu, and it was so much of the same thing over and over that we could have just gone back to Siga. And I'm wondering, is it because there's not enough happening there? Or,
I was about to say, I almost wonder if it's just because there's not drama. Like, they don't have drama.
My thinking is that we're watching this in an episodic format. We're seeing 1 week at a time. They're in the editing room after the season's over, looking at it from the God's eye perspective. Jeff Probst is looking at it from above, having seen how it all plays out. And so they're editing it, knowing what comes next week and the week after. And so my theory is that, okay, we're not seeing a lot of Siga right now, but some crazy stuff is going to be happening with these players in the coming episodes. And that's where, and when they were editing, it made more sense to flesh out the Yanu players early instead of later, I guess, for the overall narrative structure of the season. Because at the end of the day, that's what Survivor cares about, is they care about telling a story over the course of the entire season. They want to tell it from the first episode through the last episode. They want to tell a story that carries a thread all the way through. And so we're watching it one episode at a time, but we do have to think about it like a scripted show a little bit as well, in that there is a through line that they are editing this show, and it's going to carry through. So I don't think there's nothing going on the tribe. I don't think there's no strategy. Like, they are there to play Survivor, and I wish we would see it. And I think that it is a detriment of the 3-tribe format. I just think that's a problem. But also, I don't think a tribe has been this invisible in a 3-tribe format in the last 2 seasons.
No, I felt like especially last season, I feel like the coverage of each tribe was really pretty even.
Yeah.
I felt like we were seeing equal amounts of red, blue, and yellow. Red, blue, and yellow were those 3 colors. I don't remember their names. I just know Lulu was one.
Yeah.
So whatever the 3 tribe colors were. But even with Lulu losing all the time, I still felt like we saw a lot of Reba. Reba was one.
Yeah, I don't know. My brain is thinking Kucha and Ogakor because we were watching season 2. So I can't, we've been watching too many different seasons of Survivor all at the same time. Yeah. They're all becoming jumbled.
But maybe it's also because the Blue Tribe had the Katura Bruce feud.
Yeah.
and then just Red Tribe just had whatever Red Tribe was going on.
And Austin.
I was going to say had
they
D,
all
Austin,
had
and
something
Drew.
interesting to bounce between. And so that very well could also be the case, is that there's a lot of drama on Yanu. There is drama on Nami. And right now, there's nothing happening on Siga. So that could very well be the case, is that right now, they're just all having a great time.
Vibing.
They do seem like they're having a good time, except for Tim, who seems just very paranoid. And just like, the women are in cahoots. They're out to get me, man. And I just know when they lose a challenge, he's going to go off the rails. And I think the thing is, he also seems like he's mellowed out. My theory is that he's already found the Beware advantage, but they haven't shown us. And so we'll see that in the next episode, that he found the Beware advantage. And so he's chilled out a little bit. And so once they lose the challenge, maybe we'll see that. Because I think that would throw quite the wrench in the system over there at Siga if Tim had an idol. Anybody else having an idol doesn't confuse things. Maybe Ben. But it's got to be one of those two. Otherwise, it's not as fun. But yeah, the other thing over there, I guess, is Charlie and Maria are running the show at Siga, it feels like. And it's fun. I think I like both of them, both of their personalities. And it's nice to see Charlie proving us wrong from the little 1-minute snippet. There are several players that I think were done dirty in their 1-minute snippet in the way they were portrayed in that little minute, at least the way they came off to me personally. So I'm really enjoying Charlie this season and Maria. Is there anything else of note about Siga from this first episode that we should mention?
I think they had some really cool camp life interactions. Like, again, the little song battle was really cool and fun to see, just people interacting with each other. And I really enjoy seeing camp life. But I'm excited to move on and talk about the more drama-filled tribes. So we can go ahead and move on to Nami.
Yeah.
Since we'll probably spend most of the time talking about Yanu. So with Nami, we got some interesting character development this episode. There's been a lot of discourse over Jeff announcing that he's not interested in casting villains. And then it just seems like we got some villains on this tribe.
Yeah. And it should be said as well. So our episode about Jerry, we recorded that it will be releasing at the time that this episode of this recap is dropping. The Jerry episode will be coming out next week on Tuesday. Yeah. So if you're listening to this at release, the Jerry episode is not out yet.
And when we had recorded the Jerry episode, we had not seen episode 2 of season 46.
Yes. So that all has to be taken with a grain of salt, because we were speaking as if season 46 hadn't happened yet. I don't think we had seen the premiere yet either.
No, we had seen the
premiere.
Had we?
I'm not sure. We recorded it somewhere around the premiere.
So yeah, I think just some personalities really came out that they were being mean. Like it was crazy. For one, just the way that they were treating Venus is crazy. I honestly, like, Venus isn't on my team, but I like her personality a lot. But she just feels like she was just put in a box really early on in the tribe for no apparent reason, other than maybe they just saw her as like a girly girl who couldn't fend for herself, like Tevin calling her a princess on the first episode.
Yeah.
But it just feels like she was put in a box and really wasn't given a chance to even like play the game, really.
It is the weirdest. It's the weirdest of vibes. And it is incredibly difficult to decipher if it is legit or if it's just coming across in the edit that way. And that is one of the hardest things to know as a viewer of something like this on Survivor, because at the end of the day, we're not on the island. And these people are living together 24/7. And so we are, for a lack of a better term, we're armchair quarterbacks here. We're sitting back, calling the shots from home. We're just calling it like we see it, and we can only give our opinion based on what we see on the screen. And from the way the edit portrayed it, and from my perception of what we saw, is it really looks like Venus is just being bullied by her whole tribe in a way that I've not seen on Survivor in a long time. And it is very weird because it feels unwarranted. And that's the part that is that feels like she hasn't.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like she did anything other than she thought she was on the bottom immediately, so she looked for an idol. And that's what you do in Survivor when you're on the bottom. And okay, she did that ungracefully. Okay, cool. That sucks. You don't have to be despicable towards her and be mean and
like not talk to her.
But the other thing is like really the part that made me very upset, and they really the camera work and the editing specifically is they would really focus on Tevin's face and his facial reactions to anything that Venus did. And it didn't matter what she did. Everything she did that we saw on screen, granted, these could have just been 1 out of every 100 things she did. But everything we saw, he had some sort of reaction to. And it was always this negative, like, oh my God, I cannot believe she did that. Like very just mockery, making a show of it, and just very villainous, devious, vile, and crazy behavior. It's just mean.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I don't know why. That's all I want to know, is I want to understand why he feels this way. Seems whiny. I haven't really seen her act whiny. Like, I just need to see the why you're treating her that way. But Tevin really wasn't even my big issue. But before we move off of Tevin, I'm curious your thoughts too.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you're saying. Because in a tribe, someone's always going to be on the bottom. Mm-hmm. But usually someone does something to set themselves and ostracize themselves from the tribe. Like, they usually have done something extreme. Or they just were on the wrong side of the numbers.
They usually quit 3 times, like Jelinski.
Yeah. But it doesn't really seem like she has really done something to cement herself at the bottom of the tribe. Because going in, I thought she would have very easily aligned herself with Tevin. I thought they were going to get along. So yeah, I was really shocked to see these interactions. So I'm not surprised that this this is like coming out. But I will say I'm here for it. It makes for enjoyable watching television. It does make me feel bad for Venus, and I hope she is able to recover. And she honestly seems like she might have a little villain arc herself coming up.
Oh yeah, my notes that I have for Venus. My notes are they're bullet points. They are point 1. Queen, and then slay, and then revenge arc gonna go so hard, and then Randon alliance is epic, and that's kind of where we can move into that. I was about to say is with Randon.
I was honestly kind of bewildered, but it kind of got the same vibes as Caleb helping Emily last season. How you see someone who no one wants to work with. And instead of joining in the bandwagon of continuing to ostracize that person, you can seize an opportunity to make an ally who may be able to help you in the future. Like, why would you just leave someone out and not even give them the time of day when they could potentially help you in the game? So I think it's a really unlikely pairing, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, it does feel sort of similar to that. It's also a little weird, though, because it's not apples to apples, because that was a scenario where Caleb was on the top and Emily was on the bottom of Lulu,
Yeah.
and these are obviously the two that felt like they were on the bottom, even though I feel like Liz should be on the bottom, and we'll talk about Liz in a minute as well. But it was one of those things where these were two people who were at odds with one another. Like, they were hardcore beefing. And Soda was on Venus's side against Randon. It started in the first episode, to get us back up to speed for this conversation. Venus is looking for an idol. Randon catches her. Randon tells Soda. And then Soda goes and tells Venus that Randon told her. And so now that unites Soda and Venus. And they're like, man, I can't believe... because Soda's like, I don't trust Randon. I don't believe him. He's just trying to vilify Venus. Not all women are Parvati, and all this sort of stuff. And that just immediately put Randon and Venus at odds with one another. And so they were just enemies right off the bat. This was just, they were at odds. And it made sense that it happened that way. But they were both at the bottom and at odds. But it wasn't over a real issue that mattered. They were able to recognize that it's a game. It doesn't matter. The two of us are stronger together, and nobody here wants to work with us. So if we don't work together, we're both going home. And because they were able to do that, they both had a chance to move further in the game. I think that was really smart. And I was honestly really disappointed listening to the On Fire podcast this week. And I know that they only can talk about so much in the little bit of time they get, Yanu most of the time. But I really wish they would have discussed the Nami tribe, since it got a lot of screen time, and they would have discussed the dynamics of that tribe, because I was really interested to hear Jeff and Dee's thoughts on the kind of the bullying of the tribe, but also the thoughts of like this Venus and Randon alliance and how all of these dynamics were going to work out. And so I'm interested to see how that all plays out moving forward. And I'm glad that Venus actually has an ally on her tribe now, because I feel like in Survivor, if you don't have one person that you can ride or die with, you're dead. It doesn't matter. If you don't have one ally, you can't make it anywhere in the game. I don't think it's possible to win Survivor. I don't think it's possible to make it in the game without at least one ally. I just don't think it's possible to make it probably even to the merge without one ally.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to add to the Venus and Randon conversation before we move on to the 3 remaining members of the Nami tribe?
No, not to those two.
So let's move on to Soda, because she's in the conversation of Venus in terms of, honestly, just low-key, just being a bully. It really feels that way. I think my initial impressions of her was that she was going to be like super energetic and super bubbly, like in the first episode when they were doing the camp counselor songs around the fire and she was the one leading them and Hunter was getting annoyed. I was like, okay, so this is the kind of personality that we're going to get from her this season. And then we go to the first immunity challenge, and she has quite a nasty comment towards the Yanu tribe.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. So basically, they go to the first immunity challenge, and in comes Nami and Siga, all intact, all happy. And then in comes Yanu, who still has yet to win a challenge, so they don't have fire, so they're not cooking rice. They're only basically subjected to whatever they can forage for, because they don't have fire to cook anything. And so they're defeated. They walk in. They've just voted someone off. They have 5 people. And everyone had really dramatic reactions to Jelinski being voted out, so that sparks a discussion from Jeff, and both of the tribes talk to Yanu, and they're like, why did you vote him out? What happened? What's going on? Which I've never seen that happen. Usually people like gasp. Jeff asks, what was the reaction for? And they go, oh, I just didn't expect them to be voted out. And then they move on. It's never been usually like where they try to talk to them and see if they'll give them any information. But the Yanu tribe basically like didn't give anything up.
Well, they were all like joking, and Hunter made the remark and said, last name, first vote. And he,
which was pretty funny.
He dropped that, and he was just like, because they earlier in the episode were making all the jokes about what the challenge was going to be and the reward was going to be air and all this sort of stuff, which obviously they hadn't seen season 45 and the rotisserie chicken as the reward, but it almost felt like a joke about that kind of thing. And so they were making fun of Jeff and making fun of the game and the kind of craziness of it all. He went home and he came in making himself a last name player because he wanted, whether he goes by his last name in the real world or not, it has become a thing that ever since Cochran played the game in season 30 or whatever it was, 30 something, he told Jeff straight up, he's like, hey, Jeff, you call all your favorite players by their last name. I want you to call me Cochran, not John. And that's since then, like, that's just been the running gag, is that if a player ends up going by their last name, the joke is that they're just subtly one of Jeff's favorites. And so it is a bar and it's funny, but that's what set off this whole crazy thing, and all the tribes started chirping and going wild.
Yeah. And so Q is basically like, yeah, we're down to 5 people. Let's see how our 5 go against your 5. And then Soda basically says a few things and then finishes with asking them, how's the food? Which is just honestly like, it made me laugh in the moment, but it was more of like a, oh my gosh, did she actually just say that laugh? Because that's really, really harsh, honestly. Like, you know they're not eating good. No tribe is eating good, but you know they're really not eating good because they don't have fire. So it was just a really harsh remark, and you can tell that it really set the Yanu tribe on edge, as if they weren't on edge enough. And I don't know. What were your thoughts on it?
I think it was uncalled for. You're kicking them while they're already down. They are clearly, I mean, they're the only tribe to go to tribal. There's only been one, but in this new era of Survivor, we've talked about this before, it is very easy to get demoralized. You go to tribal once, it's easy to go back again. And so it's one of those things where they are already down, and you're just going to kick them while they're down and rub it in their face that you're eating rice and they're not, of all things, and that you have fire and they don't. It's for $1 million. I think if I'm going to put money on Soda or Q winning Survivor, I'm going to put my money on Q. I think Q is going to mop the floor with Soda when it comes down to it at the end of the day. Soda's on a better tribe. She has an advantage. I think she's able to talk a lot of smack because she's on a tribe that's winning right now. And we're just going to have to wait and see if Nami gets humbled. And if that means the inevitable downfall of our favorite players for her to be humbled, so be it. I think you can go... I don't think Survivor needs to be tame in any way. I love these moments where people are not afraid to talk smack. Competition, I think, is a good thing. And I love seeing, because that's how people are. I want to see these authentic moments and people really getting into it. There were some moments like that in like Heroes versus Villains where people are really, really into it and talking up a big game, but you got to be able to back it up. I don't know if food had anything to do with what they were talking about with Jelinski and 5v5v5. Honestly, it was bewildering to me. I don't have strong thoughts on it. I just think it was uncalled for, and it's going to come back to bite her in the butt later if they go into the merge and there are people from Yanu post-merge. They're going to remember that. So Nami better hope that there is not a tribe swap and that they're able to decimate Yanu down to no numbers, because otherwise they're going to be in a weird spot post-merge.
Yeah. I also feel like Soda's treatment of Venus this episode, we've already talked about Venus a little bit, but the way that Soda treated Venus this episode felt really off. It started with, after the immunity challenge, Venus got her foot ran over by the wagon, because during the immunity challenge they had to build this wagon and push it through an obstacle course, and there was a part where they were making a turn, and Venus was shouting at her tribe like, hey, I'm assuming she was yelling like, don't go this way because like I'm right here.
Well, I think she was yelling turn left, turn left. She was on the right side of the cart, and they
didn't listen to her, and she got her foot ran over. And I'd be pissed if I got my foot ran over too. She goes back to her tribe and she's like, hey, this wasn't cool. I don't appreciate y'all not listening to me. And Soda just like blows her off on her remarks. And in her confessional, she's like, I'm not here to hold your hand and pull you through this game.
Yeah.
That's just like
and then she said she's playing victim. And I'm like, no, you're victimizing her. Do you understand what's happening here? It's like, no, that's not this situation at all. All she's saying is that, good job, you guys won, but your communication was bad. You almost didn't win multiple times, and you need to communicate better because you aren't communicating, and you're just so stuck up that you're not gonna listen to her. It was very bizarre. The thing that I'm interested your thoughts on this too, is what was really weird to me was last episode it seemed like Soda and Venus were going to be allies. And especially after the way Soda flipped on Randon and came to Venus, and it seemed like they were going to be allies. And even at the start of this episode, Soda said, my heart wanted me to, I really liked Venus, but when other people don't trust her, man, well, that tells me, I guess I probably shouldn't. So I can't be her friend. Can't be her ally. It's like, if you're willing to flip on your number one because Tevin doesn't like her, you're not Tevin's number one. Hunter's Tevin's number one. The fact that she's just willing to flip-flop so fast, she's so not loyal to any specific person. I don't know how her game is going to pan out, but I don't foresee it panning out super duper well, because it doesn't seem like she has a solid number one pairing with anyone. She had a chance with Venus, and she totally just botched it, and I don't know why.
It's also only like day 4 to be like making those quick assumptions and judgments about people.
Yeah.
But do you have anything else to say about Soda before we move on to the next member of the Nami tribe?
I think we can hit these last two quickly, so that way we can move on to Yanu. Honestly, Nami, we really wanted to talk about Nami a lot because they got some screen time, but Jeff, they weren't talked about in the On Fire podcast. And so I think we both felt like that was a conversation that needed to be brought up, because it felt super freaking weird that Twitter obviously was talking about it amongst all the other stuff, but it was just something that the fact that they didn't acknowledge it in the official podcast at all was a little weird. So we knew we were going to dedicate some time to that. So this episode's a little longer than what future ones hopefully are. And we knew that coming in. So yeah, Hunter and Liz. Obviously, Hunter had his last name first vote. Honestly, he was invisible this episode.
Yeah, I was about to say, he really didn't do much.
He wasn't
honestly,
here.
My only thoughts were, I thought that he would reach out to Venus. Our our whole conversation with this tribe is really just revolving around Venus. But I thought that he would be the person to talk to her because he seems like a really nice person, and he also seems like he would be the kind of person where if he saw someone getting bullied and neglected, he would like say something, maybe.
Yeah, he's a teacher.
So I was kind of shocked
very
that
weird.
He didn't.
That's where my note is, that the fact that I didn't see any confessional from him about any of this weirdness happening on their tribe. It feels, and granted, we're going back again to it's just based off of what we're seeing, but the lack of response from Hunter in all of this situation, and the fact that he's just invisible, it feels like silence it comes across as being complicit. And so that's the vibe. Even if he's not participating in the weird behavior and the bullying, he seems like the one person there that should be standing up for her based off of everything we know about everyone there. And the fact that we didn't see that just feels weird that he's hanging back. But then in the preview we got of the next episode, there's a tease.
There's something.
There's a tease that he's a focus next week. And
yeah,
I don't know what's going to go down, but it was the same way that Bhanu was the tease as the focus for this week. And granted, Bhanu didn't go home, but Bhanu definitely was a big part of this week. And so we're going to get into that in just a second too. I don't know what is going to go down, but yeah, he was pretty invisible. I think we're going to see a lot more of him next week.
So let's move on to the last member of the Nami tribe before we discuss the Yanu tribe and bring this episode to a close. What do you got to say about Liz?
I just think it's the same thing as last week. I think she brags too much. She talks about her money. Liz, to me, the vibe I get from Liz is she's kind of like if LinkedIn was a person. That's the vibe I get from Liz. And her strategy feels like she keeps talking about all the money she's making because she wants to turn herself into a goat, right? She wants to force herself into the position that someone wants to take her to the end and give herself a shot at the million because they don't want to vote for whoever else is there. Because someone's like, oh, well, she's already got money. I'll just take her with me the whole way there. And I'm just like, that's such a freaking stupid strategy. That's the only way in my brain that I can rationalize her 2 for 2 episodes bringing up that she's got more money than everybody else there.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
She said that apparently she has a long list of men who want to date her, and who doesn't want to date her is basically what she said.
Who doesn't want to date Liz?
And then she basically goes on to say that they have to be okay with her making more money than them and her not needing them to contribute financially, basically, if they were in a relationship.
Yeah, no clue.
Same vibes, but in my opinion, if you're playing Survivor, one of the number one rules is you don't give someone a reason to not want to give you $1 million. And telling people that you have money is a pretty good reason to not want to give you more.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know. Weird vibe. Somehow she's not the name on the chopping block. She's just kind of there. I think there's going to be a tribe swap. I have a feeling with this season that they're going to do it again, just like they did last season, because they did one last season, right? Yeah, they swapped them all up. So I have a feeling they're going to do that. I really, 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 really want them to swap them from 3 into 2. I don't know if they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to do that. They haven't done that. But that is my pitch to Jeff Probst. And I'm going to start writing him an email every day and just be like, "Dear Jeff, please, if you're going to do the 3 tribe format, merge them from 3 into 2 and then go into 1." Because I think that is the best, in my brain, I think that's the best way to actually get the best winner at the end, because I think it forces the actual best relational dynamics all the way through. So, but I do think there has to be a swap, because I just don't see Yanu winning another challenge. I think Yanu's going to lose the next one. and then they need a swap
agree.
again. So I think that moves us into Yanu. Luckily, they got less people. So honestly, with Yanu, I think we can hit the 3-headed trifecta of Kinsey, Q, and Tiffany all at once, where they're an interesting trio because Q and Tiffany are a duo, and then Kinsey is part of the trio, but also not. And so it's a little different. So maybe we talk about Kinsey separately from the other two. But Tiffany and Q, definitely a tight duo. Tiffany has a hidden immunity idol. Q, very strong, good at challenges, obviously. They both great players. You've got them both on your team. Congratulations. They are huge threats to win if they can somehow make it into the merge. Obviously, Tiffany is my winner for most improved since their little 1-minute video. And
I agree.
Wins the done the most dirty by that little 1-minute edit. I just think the edit did not show her personality at all. She is so different in the show from that 1-minute snippet, I think. We are seeing a totally different person from the way I felt she was portrayed in that little 60... Granted, 60 seconds isn't a lot, but I really, really like Tiffany.
Yeah,
and
I completely agree.
It just wasn't the way that I anticipated her playing the game based on the little sneak peek we got of her.
Yeah, I agree. And she's ripped.
Yeah.
That was something that she looks jacked. That's something that I was not expecting.
So what are your thoughts about Q and Tiffany? And we can even rope Kinsey into this, because honestly, what this whole conversation about these guys boils down to is their plot to get Jess out. And that whole thing that happens on their island with the fake idol and the shot in the dark. So what are your thoughts on all of that?
So just to provide a recap, and in case anyone's listening to the podcast who doesn't want to watch the episode for some reason, Tiffany had found her hidden immunity idol, and their plan was to get Jess out at Tribal. But Jess had her shot in the dark, where she could play her shot in the dark for a 1 in 6 chance at immunity. And so in order to prevent Jess from playing her shot in the dark, they crafted a fake immunity idol, wrapped it up in Tiffany's little parchment that has the rules of an immunity idol. They hid it, and they tried to get Jess to find it. They could not get Jess to successfully find the idol, so Q gives the idol to Jess personally under the pretense that I'm giving this to you so you will vote for whoever I tell you. Jess kind of susses out the idol, and she thinks that it's fake. It doesn't look very convincing. It just looks like some beads on a string, which usually the idol kind of has been more beads on the string, but this one was like really rinky-dinky.
I mean, it was literally, she was like, it looks like the stuff hanging off water bottles.
Yeah, and she was like, it looks like the stuff hanging off all our...
And it was cut off of Jelinski's water bottle. So, yeah, congratulations.
So, my whole thing with this is the shot in the dark doesn't work like a hidden immunity idol. Mm-hmm. When you play your shot in the dark, you don't vote. You risk losing your vote for a chance at immunity when you play your shot in the dark, for a 1 in 6 chance at immunity. So if every person voted for the person who played their shot in the dark and they end up being safe, they have to re-vote, because that person who played the shot in the dark doesn't get to vote and send someone home. Like when you play a hidden immunity idol, if everyone votes for you, the person you voted for goes home. So the thing that I was confused of with this plan is there's no risk, because if Jess plays her shot in the dark, you re-vote, you send Bhanu home. You already don't like him. You already are not aligned with him. It's already just y'all three versus the other two. You have the idol, so you know they don't have the idol. There's no risk. It just felt unnecessary and just humiliating to Jess.
Yeah.
And just, this is just the trend of this episode, but just felt really villainous.
It was just mean and unnecessary. Yeah. It was just overcomplicated for no reason.
And it also maybe just to say they made a move for the sake of making a move, because we got someone to buy into a fake idol and played a fake idol and then got him out. Maybe that just to, I don't know, put a check mark on your resume or something. But yeah, it it just felt mean and unnecessary to Jess. I will say that I'm glad when they played it, it seemed like she kind of laughed it off and wasn't really upset by it. But at the same time, if that was me, I would have been pissed.
I hope if it was you, you wouldn't have played it.
Yeah, I don't.
Would you have played it?
See, the thing is, you never truly know until you do. I would have been highly suspect. I probably still would have played it just because if you're going to go home, might as well take every opportunity you can.
I would have gone up and said, all right, Jeff, I got a fake idol for you right here, but I'm going to play it for myself. And then if it turns out to be real, I would have been like, really played it up for the camera. And then if it wasn't, I would have just bowed and been like, thank you, I will go home.
Yeah. The beef between Q and Kenzie also was just interesting. I was not expecting Q to be untrusting of Kenzie right now. I thought that was interesting.
I think, what did you think of the conversation between Kenzie and Bhanu and Jess when they went off to the cave? And Kenzie's, because this is what started the divide that appeared between Q and Kenzie. Like this is outside of, because honestly, there was also the divide where Tiffany kind of also inserted some cracks where she was like, oh, Kenzie also wants to be my number one, that sort of thing. But I think that is aside. But where the specific one I'm referring to is just where Kenzie is putting out feelers and seeing, hey, would you guys consider Tiff or Q? And Bhanu and Jess both go, oh my gosh, we would never. Oh, what's not? Oh my goodness, what? And it was in my brain, I was like, okay, first of all, weird of Kenzie to do that with them both together. I would do it with them one-on-one, but also the reaction of both of them was weird because how imperceptive do you have to be to realize the two of you are on the bottom? The only way that the two of you make it further in this game is if Tiff or Q, or Kenzie, I guess, go home. But if Kenzie goes home next, then it's just 2-2. The only way you survive is with Kenzie on your team. So I'm curious what your thoughts were on that conversation. Do you think it was like Kenzie was big braining it, or it was a lapse in judgment? Because that was a weird moment, I think, in the episode.
I think it was a lapse in judgment. I think it was a bad strategic move by Kenzie, in all honesty. Because I feel like it was apparent that Bhanu and Jess are not strategic players. Jess was not a strategic player, and Bhanu does not seem to be a strategic player. I understand wanting to put feelers out there just to see what your options are, but whenever you have someone who's an emotional player like Bhanu and a non-strategic player like Jess, and you throw someone's name out there, you know that name is going to get back to that person who you said. So it just feels like it's causing an unnecessary rift in your alliance when you're 3 strong and you just vote out one of them. I feel like Kenzie had to have known deep down there's no way that she is going to vote with Bhanu and Jess.
That's my thought too.
As sucky as it is to like not to as terrible as it is to not feel out all your options, I think her best move in that scenario was just stick to her 3 and just say sayonara to Bhanu and Jess and don't even give them the time of day. There's really no point in causing an unnecessary rift in your alliance just for the sake of feeling out your options.
I think you still probably talk strategy with each of them one-on-one, but I don't understand having a conversation with both of them at the same time. I don't think it's probably wise most of the time to have group conversations in Survivor. Because that's when, and this is going to allow us to transition super nicely into Bhanu territory, if you're okay moving that way, to the water well conversation, where you had Kenzie. I'm trying to remember the conversation. This is a really horrible recollection. I didn't write it down.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But you remember the moment, right? It was well, we can deduce, right? Bhanu's not there. There's only 5 of them, right? So Jess was one of them, and Tiffany was there, and then Kenzie came up. So that's what it was. Okay, So it's Tiffany and Jess sitting there talking.
Yeah.
Tiffany and Jess are both there talking at the water well, and Tiffany's trying to basically understand where Jess is. And then Kinsey comes up and enters the conversation, and then Jess asks who Kinsey would vote, and Kinsey's can't throw out Q as the name because obviously her and Tiff and Q are a 3. So there's only one player left, Bhanu, because she's not going to say her name, and she's not going to say Jess because she's telling it to Jess. So you say Bhanu. There's only 5 people in the tribe. This is just basic math. And then Jess goes and tells Bhanu, and Q is there as well, and Bhanu freaks out because none of them can count to 5. And it is the weirdest thing. And Bhanu gets so upset because now his name, quotes, is on the chopping block. And then Kinsey's BS rationale for throwing out Bhanu's name was so that way Jess didn't know it was her as the vote, was because Bhanu is too emotional. And then that is what really threw Bhanu into a frenzy at Tribal. And I think that transitions us into Tribal pretty nicely. And probably also talk about the challenge with Bhanu and Jess. And they're where the core problem with this tribe is. So let's talk about Bhanu and Jess.
So they had a pretty lackluster performance at the challenge. Granted, it was a hard challenge.
Very difficult.
In the On Fire podcast, Jeff has said that there was a 20-minute period when he was watching this challenge live that he was like, they might not be able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a really tough challenge. And honestly, as much as Jelinski was a worthy first boot, he probably would have been a lot more helpful in this challenge than his tribe mates were.
Being as tall as that boy is, he would have been very helpful in this specific challenge. If this challenge was last week, Yanu would have won.
Yeah.
Maybe not won. So, they would not have been in last. I'm very confident of that.
So there were a few moments during this challenge where it seemed like Jess just really was not giving it her all. She was like strolling around instead of really like putting the pedal to the metal and just giving everything that you got. And so I think that really left a bad taste in Tiffany's mouth. She was pretty beaten up about it. And so they lose the challenge. They go to Tribal. And Tribal's just really interesting. The emotions really start coming out because Bhanu just cannot keep anything in. He openly brings up that he knows his name has been thrown out there, and he says that he's like feeling attacked and things like that. And then his tribe mates are like, you can't do this. Like, you cannot talk about these things so publicly, especially if we're going to go to a merge scenario and we're trying to be in alliance together. And he's like, no, but in those cases, I'd keep it in. And they're like, bro, you literally just let it all out right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty tough to watch. And then they scramble. They're all like looking at each other like, do we switch to Bhanu right now? Or do we keep it at Jess? And there's this moment where Bhanu goes over to Tiffany and he's like, is it me? He like legit asks her, like, is it me? And she's like, I'm just sticking with the original plan. So he goes back to his seat and he turns to Kinsey and he goes, Kinsey, who should I vote for? And she goes, whoever you want.
He starts by asking Kinsey, asking, who do I vote for? She goes, whoever you want, man, because it doesn't matter who he votes for.
Yeah.
They have the votes. And he's like, don't do that to me. Because he sincerely thinks it's him.
Yeah.
And it shows a really concerning thing for Q and Kinsey and Tiffany that I'm interested to see how it's explored in the next episode, that his game sense at this point is so low that he doesn't even realize that his vote is inconsequential to them. It doesn't matter, but that he's not on the hot seat. And even if he was, it doesn't matter. And his ability to read the room is really, really a problem and is going to make him a huge liability that no one saw coming.
Even when the votes are read, Jess throws her one vote at Bhanu. All the other votes are for Jess. Bhanu's vote is read first. His vote gets read, and he starts packing his bag. He puts his bag over his shoulder. He's ready to leave. And I'm like, bro, you're not going home. Dramatic.
It actually might, out of everything that happens in this episode, that might be the funniest thing that happens in this whole episode, because it is so overly dramatic.
Yeah.
It's just, please, come on, man. Have you not watched a single episode of Survivor? Have you not? There's going to be another vote here. You know that you just casted a vote for Jess, right? If you were going home, your vote for Jess was going to be the first one read. All right?
Yeah.
You know how this game works, bro. Come on. Please. I know they're on the island and it's hard to think like that, but bro was so dramatic. It was pretty funny. But it was so silly.
Yeah. So overall, it was a really good episode. I think there were a lot of very, very interesting things happens. A lot of personalities are starting to develop. I'm interested to see how those develop in the next episodes. Do these people continue to be villainous and be devious? I am here for it. I think it's interesting that everyone has been clamoring about Survivor not having villains, and now I've been seeing a lot of discourse where people are like, oh, we don't want people being mean and we don't want it, that kind of thing. And I'm like, bro, y'all were just talking about how y'all want villains. So I'm here for the messiness, as long as it doesn't get to the point where people are just like outright being awful to each other. Yeah. I don't mind the occasional clapbacks and stuff like that. So I'm excited to see where it goes from here.
Yeah. As long as you aren't bullying Venus, we're okay. It's just don't cross the line and bully Venus. That's where the line is. The second you're affecting Venus, it's over. Game over. You can bully anyone else but her or Kinsey, or the jury's still out on Hunter and Tiffany. Yeah, don't bully Tiffany either. Especially Venus. Can't bully Venus. No bullying Venus. I will allow bullying of Soda and Liz. We will always allow bullying of Jelinski. But yeah, no, I agree. It is a very interesting phenomenon how we were just weeks ago, everybody was freaking out that Jeff Probst said, I'm not interested in casting any more villains in Survivor. And now we have an episode of, is this just the next cast of Heroes versus Villains? But just all the villains? Because we go down this roster, you've got, if they were going to do Heroes versus Villains, you could throw Kinsey on the villains, Q on the villains, Tevin on the villains, and I think Venus is going to have a villain arc. And if Soda keeps being mean, as much as I don't want to call her a villain, she's being mean. You could put her on the villain team. So, yeah, that's 5. That's 5 villains in one season. That's insane. Now, this is one episode. Take it all with a grain of salt. It is what it is, but it is kind of wild. And it's such a 180 from the first episode. We were so in love with Tevin and this Andy Griffith alliance, and it was the highlight of that episode. And then we don't see that alliance at all this episode, and now Tevin is a villain, and we predicted it was going to happen, and I just don't know where the season's going to go. I'm excited to see where it's going to go. I kind of just wish I could binge it all at once, though.
With that, I think we will wrap up this episode of the Idle Talk podcast. Thanks for listening. You can check us out wherever you listen to podcasts. We have some episodes coming out here soon, wrapping up our time talking about the Australian Outback. And from here, we are going to be moving on to Survivor Season 3 Africa. We're going to continue doing recaps of all the weekly episodes of 46 as they come out. So check us out on Instagram and TikTok at Idle Talk Podcast. And thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.